Paul opens the door to the hallway, and he says to his guy, "We're done." And I'm like, that can't be. And I saw Dave, the contractor, walk by, and I go, "They're done." He goes, "I still got 5 minutes." And I'm like, "But they're done." And I said, I guess God is bigger than the Beatles.
This is my camera? Okay, cool. Paula, thank you for coming.
Oh, sure.
This is going to
I'd
be
make the trek downtown for you anytime.
Oh, my. What? This is a very exciting episode because I'm sitting here with Paula Salvatore, a absolute legend in the music business, as a studio manager, as a shepherd of so many engineers,
That's a good word
so
for
many
it.
producers. Mm-hmm. You have seen engineers go from pups in the business to complete giants. You've worked with everybody from Frank Sinatra to Paul McCartney to Al Schmidt to, Michael Jackson, like the Quincy Jones, like just the list.
If you stick around long enough, eventually they come around. Right?
Yeah, right. This is a Gender Amplified podcast called Sticky. And the sticky is short for stick-to-itiveness. Stick-to-itiveness is short for this concept of faith. What keeps people sticking to this industry? Mm-hmm. What keeps people sticking to the dream and the hope that they can be one of a million and have a job in the music business and an opportunity to see records go from inception to the top of the charts? What is that other than faith? What keeps people having faith in their abilities, faith in their talents, but also faith in the business? Because it ebbs and flows. Yeah. And there's so much topsy-turvy with this business. So what makes people stick to it, and why, and how is faith, irrespective of what we believe, either as Christians or Muslims or Jewish persons, what makes us, what are the elements of our faith that make us continue to stick to music? So that is what this podcast is about. Gender Amplified is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports the advancement of women in music production and audio engineering. We are based out of New York City. We reach our goals and our mission statements through a number of initiatives, specifically our Control Room series, music production camp that we've been hosting since 2019, which has shepherded close to 200 music producers through our programs over the years. So this podcast is in support of that. And all the proceeds from the work that we do go back into our community of producers. So without further ado, here we go. All right, Paula. I did the best I could with your bio. It's really just too much. It's too much to even,
That's
but
funny.
I want to just give you the floor by saying, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the music business and what that journey was in the beginning?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, just being a young girl, 8 or 9, just in love with the radio and everything and the singers, and and I really wanted to be one of them, a player, a singer, piano. I was enthralled by the piano at a very young age, and I really wanted a piano, but I got a sewing machine at 9. So I thought, I'll just listen to music and I'll keep thinking of music. And eventually I figured I can sew clothes for bands. and I found a college in Boston that was near Berkeley College of Music. It was a junior college that had fashion designing. And I said, well, I'll meet the musicians and I'll get my way in there somehow. I'll sew my way in, right?
Sowing seeds.
And my parents got a piano when I was 17, going on my way to college. I'm like, thanks. And then when I was away for 2 years, I called my mom and I said, I'm going to come back and just play piano. I'm going to do it. And she's like, well, we're selling it because we want a hutch and no one's playing it. I'm like, I'm not there. So I decided I made some clothes for a band, get a little money before I left. I decided to come to California where the music was, The music was alive everywhere, and girl groups weren't even that much around yet. It was mostly Hart and Bonnie Raitt, Rita Coolidge, Joni Mitchell, of course, and Carole King. I'm like, there's room, you know? I just had to find my way. So I came out and was just trying to sew. The first job I got was at a clothing store that a lot of rock and roll people went to. So it just seemed like all my days were going that way. And the Rainbow was right next door. And, you know, I was just always involved in that world. And me and these couple of girls made clothes for the group Angel, which was the white version of Kiss. You know, they were on Casablanca. It turns out Eddie Kramer did their record. I met him years ago later. I'm like, really? Because I never went in the studio back then. But then I started meeting some people through this girl I was sewing with, and went to some record industry. It wasn't really record industry. It was a bunch of studios that got together and played baseball in the Valley. So I'm like, I can do that. And I met, you know, this great producer, songwriter, everything, Vinnie Poncia, who did Kiss. He did Ringo, and he was coincidentally from my hometown of Rhode Island.
Right.
So he kind of took me under his wing and, you know, invited me to the studio. And I went, it was Sound Labs. It was up on Yucca, right near, around the corner from Capitol. And he was doing Melissa Manchester and working with James Newton Howard. He brought him up through the ranks. And anyway, I was like, wow, there's a studio. There's like a studio, but there's an office outside. And I'm like, do you guys have an office in the studio? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I see a way. So I continued sewing, and then I started dating a musician who was a piano player, of course, and thought, oh, maybe someday I can get a piano. But he got me a sewing machine. It's like a fairy tale of and anyway, but when things went south with that, I got my first job. I went into a record store, Music Plus, right in Studio City. And it turned out to be the time when all the Toto guys were getting together. You know, they're always together, but they all come in the store. Everybody came in that store. Like, it was crazy. And when I was there, it was Star Wars, it was Steely Dan Asia, and it was Saturday Night Fever. And everything, just records, vinyl, all over the place. So I, you know, like I said, I met somebody, and I was kind of touring a little, you know, just to go out on the thing. And then after that ended, I went back to Music Plus and said, I got to get a job.
Yeah.
And they said, well, this girl just quit Kendon. And I'm like, what does she do? And they said, she's in traffic. And I'm like, okay. And then I called my friend Vinny, and I said, what do I got to know to work in a recording studio? And he said, 24 track, Dolby, I don't know. And I'm like, that's good. That's good enough. So I don't understand it, so it's good. And I called the place. She had just quit, this girl, and I said, hi, I'm looking for a job in traffic, and I know 24 track Dolby. And I worked with this guy and this guy. And they said, I don't know, I guess come over. Those were those days. I walked in, and this woman, really beautiful woman, Althea Mathis, came up to me, and she's like, so what did you do? You sewed and you worked at Music Plus? She goes, you don't really have any recordings, any experience in the music business. And she said, a lot of girls got laid off recently. You know, this is the 70s. And I just said, well, you know, I said, I have no bad habits and I'm completely trainable. I said, and those girls are going to give you attitude. As girls should, right? And she said, okay. And she said, we're going to give you a chance. So.
And the rest is history.
Got a job right then. And it's funny because I ran into the musician later, and he's like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I got a job in a recording studio. He's like, what? You know, like, you know, give me an hour. I got to get you, what are you going to do? And like you said, you know, I think your faith comes in handy, and things, you know, God watches out for you. And, you know, it's like basically you're following a path that might have already been made for you, but it's not always the path you think you're going to go on. Like, you have your for sure direction, but I think as long as you're going in that direction and not going south, you know, you're going to get there. So I worked at Kendon for 2.5, 3 years, and I got a little burnt out a little bit because of just being around so much. I took a little 6-week leave, and then I said, I'm going back stronger than ever. And that's when my faith really came in, because I was like, okay, I hit the top. I fell to the bottom, but I don't want to give up, you know, in my mid-20s. So I went back out to California, and I didn't move or anything. I just took off, went to see my family. I have a great family, you know. But I really started pursuing what was the best thing. Like, you know, I started pursuing all the Christian music market, and started meeting some wonderful people. I met like Bill Maxwell, Abel Boreal, Andre Crouch, and they were much,
Hey, Paula.
so much a community. And then this other guy I was seeing, another piano player. I just didn't stop there. He was working with Andre,
players.
and so we used to go over to Andre's house, and Tata Vega and Rose Stone were singing with them, and they're like, "Come and sing with us." And you know, with those voices, all you have to do is open your mouth, and you feel like you're singing or you're adding something. They're just so powerful. It really did. It's just like goes in and goes, and you know, it was just fun stuff. And then I ran into someone that said, Sound City needs you. It was an ADS show that was downtown LA. And I went there, and I was driving over to Sound City, and I heard Jesse's Girl on the radio, a new song. And I'm like, wow, that's a really fun song. And then I see the manager there, and he says, we manage Rick Springfield, and we're doing some good stuff. I'm like, okay. So I went over there and just, you know, started 4 to 12 shift, which was crazy. If you're in a rock and roll studio and you're working 4 to 12, you're really going till 4 to 4, you know, because you're not going to, when my shift ended, I'm like, I'll go see the guys. And REO was working there, and Dio, and everybody will play pinball, and everybody doesn't mind you hanging out. So, you know, that's the funny thing, is that I was like, always like, I'm not a groupie. I love music. I love the bands, and I'm in charge of the studio. So it's the best place to be, because you know, you're authenticated. And then people want to come back in, they go through you, and you just become a service. And I just always stayed over on the top of helping them out, whatever they need, you know. But mostly it's all about hospitality.
Yeah.
And making people, like, it's a thing you should learn growing up, is how to treat people coming over, you know, how to just be observant of, you know, can I get you some water? Can I do this? And what, you know, it just means a lot. I see those things mean so much in studios. I see people's reaction change, you know.
Let me think that's a really good segue. Let's talk a little bit about your upbringing, because you talk about hospitality as being a number one gift or talent that you can actually provide in the studio setting. It's not about the gear necessarily at the studio.
It's everybody, you've got to have the gear to play the game, you know?
Right, but after that, it's customer service.
Yeah.
And you talk about how you were raised, and I can definitely attest to being raised in the South. You know, I had a school teacher that would always say to us when I was coming up in Catholic school, common decency is really the best thing that you can ever offer. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how talented you are. It's common decency that you extend to others. So that was a part of my upbringing. Can you talk a little bit more about how your faith was solidified in your youth, and how your standards for manners, and eventually what became the core of your talent for customer service and hospitality? Like, how was that established in your household?
You know, my father's great provider, smart. He helped me be smart, you know, because I can be goofy, you know. But I like to make people laugh, and my dad has that kind of dry personality and stuff. But he always said, you know, bring that up, you know. I'm like, I had all A's and a B, and you're bugging me. And he's like, might as well bring it up. And like, and also he was stricter with me, because I was the first girl. I'm one of 3, one of 5 kids, you know.
One of 3 girls, one of 5 kids.
Huh?
One of 3 girls and one of 5 kids.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it was like very shared everything, you know, my room, like I shared with a younger sister and another sister. And I'm like, can I have my own space? Like, can you just put a curtain up or something? Can I put a wall up? So that's why I eventually had to go to school and move. I'm getting my own place, you know?
Yeah.
But my mother was just so hospitable. She's just so wonderful. And she'd always say, like, you should, when you talk to people, like, you should know what they're going to think by what you said. How are they going to react to this? And that changes the way you present yourself. You know what I mean? Don't just, so I had a good filter. I think I had a good filter from my brain to my mouth. And
right.
Some people don't have it. And in your sarcasm, I mean, a lot of stuff going on inside of me going, oh my God, this is like, but I just go, okay, because I'd always figure out, like, they must be having a really bad day. If they're going at it because of some little thing, then they must have bigger problems.
Right. That's very true.
So just go over me, go over my shoulder, and that's why I try to tell a lot of my friends, let it fall off your shoulders, and that's the time if you got to just verbally say in your head, Jesus, take the wheel, And I've had to do that a lot. I've had to go, there's no way I can.
Well, you know where I'm going with that. It's time for us to talk about the Paul McCartney session and the orchestra because you, I believe, uttered those exact same words at that moment when you like Jesus, take the wheel. Tell
my little instance. Well,
yeah.
When Paul McCartney came to Capitol, it's like, and I had been through it a lot now. I got over the first shock and all that stuff. Yeah. When I was there at Capitol for a month.
As studio manager for Capitol.
My new job at Capitol, 1990, coming from Sound City. One of my things was like, maybe I'll meet Paul McCartney. But I was flipping through the pages going, because Studio A was so brand new that it almost made me run away. It was too clean and too pretty. I liked Sound City. It was just real. I was more at home, This was a big castle.
Right.
So
with a huge legacy.
But I was looking through the book and it was like a mix. Nothing was in A, I'm like, oh my God, what did I make the wrong decision? And then I see Paul McCartney interviews and I'm like, it can't be. So I went to Jeff in the shop who got me the job there. I'm like, is he really going to come in? He's like, I guess, yeah. I'm like, okay. Then I went crazy. But so I got to meet him there. So these are many years gone by, and I booked him to come in. I had a string date booked in Studio B with a new client that I just re-met last year.
Oh, word.
And he told me, because he's a great composer, Nathan, he said, I was at Capitol when Paul McCartney had the session was bleeding. I said, that was you? Because I never saw you again. I thought, that guy must be mad. But nothing happened. So what happened, Paul's doing a thing, but it turned out instead of doing a session, he was doing a rehearsal.
Yeah.
And it was for the Peter show. And he had a full band in there, full amps, crazy loud. It was great. And I was in my glory, talking to his son, I'm like, and I see my engineer outside kind of stalking the hallway. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, the bass is bleeding into B. And I said, do they know who's in there? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, they still want to see me? And so I went down there and they're all sitting down there like, it's a full string date. And the contractor says, we can't work like this. And I said, well, is it in the same key? Can you run it? Let's give him his own track. This might have been before sampling was available. Who knows, They didn't laugh. They didn't laugh. So I said, okay. And then the contractor looks at me and goes, we'll take a 10. If it doesn't change by then, we're going to have to cancel session. You're going to have to cover the string date. I'm like, and I remember I went to my boss and he's like, why did you book a live recording with a string date? And I said, who should I have told no, Paul or the string date? We're supposed to keep busy.
Yeah.
What's wrong with the walls? What's wrong? But it's just vibration.
Right.
So I went outside the hall and his Scottish bodyguard was standing there with the door closed. And he said, what's the matter? And I said, oh, they're just bleeding. The bass is bleeding, and I'd have to cover the string date. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm just going to pray outside here. And he's like, okay. I go, yeah. He goes, so it was an inner prayer. Like, I know there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, but calling all angels. And I was waiting 5 minutes, and Paul opens the door to the hallway, and he says to his guy, we're done. And I'm like, that can't be. And I saw Dave, the contractor, walk by, and I go, they're done. He goes, I still got 5 minutes. And I'm like, but they're done. And I said, I guess God is bigger than the Beatles. It could have been a question there, but it was so amazing that I was like, oh, thank you, And when you know where it comes from,
Yeah,
That was just one of the odd ones. There's been a few instances that that I believe my faith got me through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that story, the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, I got to find a way to record that because.
Oh, that story?
Yeah. I mean,
I know. I don't think I've ever told anybody
right.
on a podcast.
Yeah, right. That's the engineer.
Sorry, Paul, but
I got to record that. So I think the thing for me is, in small ways or big ways, whether it's Jesus or Abraham or Muhammad or whomever, right? Faith, believing in the unseen, believing even just in your own will and your own ability to move through this business, because there's so many things that happen so unexpectedly, especially in studios, especially with engineers, and really, to quote so many incredible artists and producers, the magic happens in the studio.
That's the other thing, it's that it does. And sometimes you can get in trouble for saying that because you can look, like spacey, but it is magic. I've seen it, it's like the energy, it's a love. Music is full of love, and music is a God-given gift to everybody, to the world. I mean, think about it, just in all cultures, and it just makes people smile. And so I always could be amazed that these guys, there's a lot of guys in the control room stuff, but they can hang out with each other for like 12 hours and just keep laughing. And that's why the jokes come out and the stories are so great. So I just was so lucky that I just go in and sit in the back, and just listen and laugh. I've been in rooms with Quincy, Quincy was at Capitol doing a project, and he said, oh, look at that, Kendon, the 2-inch box that's Kendon. And it was one of the brothers Johnson was there, and he's like, oh, you were there, and you were there, and you were there. And then he goes, you were there. I was there. So it's like, because I knew when there was some great sessions, so find a way to park myself in one of the little black leather couches and stuff.
Right. Our mutual friend, John McBride, down at Blackbird,
he's wonderful,
in Tennessee.
A man surrounded by women in his family. He has 3 daughters and a beautiful wife, Martina.
Exactly.
A great artist.
Amazing. We were both featured on his podcast, Inside Blackbird, and you shared that one of the secrets to this industry is relationships, putting other people first is a biblical thing. How does your faith tie into how you are building relationships?
Well, treat those how you wish to be treated.
Yeah.
Right? And basically, the less selfish you are with your part of the day, it's like people see that. I mean, I'm noticing that they notice that. With me, it was just like, I want you to want to come back. I want, it's like a concierge. It's like a restaurant owner. It's like if the person that brought you in and sat you down wasn't the person, he's not here anymore. It's like, well, when I'm inclined to go eat somewhere, I might go somewhere else because I want that. you know. So I really always saw that, how people are treated and welcomed, and I never got too jaded, you know, by, wow, like, wonderful to see you, and I'm so privileged that they would come in to work there when they could work anywhere, and also that they're feeling, some artists, you know, especially walking down the halls of Capitol, sometimes they feel, you know, I gotta do my best, and I think that's healthy for them too. But I think our only job is to accommodate and make sure that they got what they need. Technically, they will, you know. How can, you know, little touches. Do you need something, you know, do you need something to eat? And I'll make sure it comes out right, you know. They really take to that. It's simple, you know, home hospitality.
Let me ask you this. You've worked with some incredible women in production over the years, and you know, Diane Warren and Linda Perry and, you know, so many other incredible. Can you tell us about some of the women that have come through Capitol or Sunset, and, you know, just how you've built relationships with them, and also just the trajectory of women in the studio world?
Yeah. I mean, you know, working at Capitol, hanging with Bonnie Raitt, you know, who I always loved in college too. So, and she's so fun. And, you know, Diana Krall did a lot of records.
Yeah.
I even got to see Barbara, you know, for a little bit, like 3 times. And she said to me once, "You were here last time I was here." And I said, "Yes, and I'll always be here by your side when you need me in Capitol." You know, she's like, you know, so you can make funny things, you know, you can joke with it. But there, you know, just, I met like Joni Mitchell, you know, and just, I was in the room when she was doing a record, and, you know, just so many beautiful women that love the studio. And now I've worked with the best, like Rose Manchurney, Ed Cherney's wife. She really capitalized on the hospitality aspect and service with when she ran Record Plant. And I worked with her back in Kendon, and she just had a knack with people, that people would love her and just want to be around her. And, you know, and then I got my good friends Candace and
tell us about Candace.
Yeah,
your relationship.
Candace had 3 brothers that wanted to be engineers, so she kept coming back and forth. In fact, one of her first jobs was at Kendon, but now it was called another name. But so we've been like right beside each other, and sometimes with me, her, and Rose, we just call each other, and it's like, "What's going on? Like, are you busy? Or this project, do you have room for it? Because I don't have room for both." And so we would always check on each other. And even Rose kept saying, "I'm going to leave." And I'm like, no, stay. Don't get out, you know. And she said, "I stayed another 10 years because you bothered me about it."
So I want to make sure that the audience understands this trifecta, right? Like, you're talking about Candace, last name?
Stewart.
Candace Stewart, who runs East West Studios, legendary studio in here in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You were at Sunset Sound in Capitol
not
for a very long time.
Sound City.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You were at Sunset City. You were at
Sound City.
Should I retake that whole bit? Okay, so just so the audience understands, like, this trifecta of amazing women you're talking about. There's Candace Stewart, who runs East West in Hollywood, and you were at Sound City and Capitol for a very long time.
Yeah, over.
And then there's Rose, who was at which studio was she?
Record Plant,
at
like
the record
35
plant,
years.
at the legendary Record Plant,
Legendary
and was studio
Records.
manager. So you all kind of formed a collective within a very large studio world that was extremely active, and it continues to be extremely active.
Yeah.
In the rock and roll space, in the jazz space, in the orchestral space. It really isn't a genre that those 3 studios didn't touch at some point. So you're basically talking about your girls.
Yeah.
And how y'all came up together.
There's a lot more now. There's Vicky, there's Fariel, there's Zoe, and, you know, it just seems like we all kept each other like there. Like, I'm not leaving my place. You know, I'm not. Maybe it was a little competitiveness, but it was kind of fun. We'd go to the conventions and see our other girls, and there was like Lisa Roy, bless her heart, rest in peace, and Maureen Droney and Karen Dunn and all these girls. It's like no one wanted to leave the party, so we kept each other in. It's been like that. They still are around. And I see a lot of new girls come up and coming, and they're really eager to talk with me. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. I don't feel like, I still feel like I'm there, you know? It's like, you know, even though I'm now doing my own music consultant business, it spreads me out, and it seems like I'm busier because I got access to do more. I'm not planted in one facility. So,
right.
But I think that's what we do as women. We keep each other going, like, hang in there, and we're very positive. And there's a lot more girls coming in the business, you know, engineers and doing well and mastering people and, you know, studio management. So I'm ready. I want to give back to that.
I'm curious your thoughts. You're talking about the evolution of the music business. What are your thoughts about the emerging technologies and particularly artificial intelligence and its influence on the studio industry and music producers and engineers? What is your take on what's next and how it could potentially affect that crop of young women?
I don't think we should let AI step on our toes. You know, I think we should keep it in its lane. And I think we have to maintain control. You know, and whatever that is, use it as like a overdub or something. But you really have to, the whole purpose and reason why music has sustained is because it's part of the heart and soul. You can't build that into a machine. I mean, you could, but it's eventually going to catch up with you, and it's going to sound repetitious. But so I just think that the whole magic is in us to create that music. And if you depend on a crutch of someone else doing it for you, I mean, you know, they can participate, but you can't let them own you, you know? So that's what I keep seeing, because, you know, when I was at Kenton, I remember Herbie Hancock brought in a Lynn drum machine. No one knew what it was. He's like, listen, and everybody's like, the drummers, you could see their faces were being replaced by a drum machine. And then I went to Sound City, had one of the biggest drum rooms in town, and everybody started going for the big drums. And I'm like, see? And then the same thing with synthesizers. Everybody said, oh, there's going to be no more string players. It's all going to be in, you know, keyboards and all these great synths. And then I went over to Capitol, and we did Unforgettable with Natalie Cole. I'm like, there's no comparison. So every time I think the business is going to go down the drain, something comes up, or people change it. Like this generation might be changing it. And I see that you know, a lot of people dependent, and COVID kind of did us in and made everybody go home and do it alone. But I really think my message is to these kids is, if you get a record deal, go do it in a studio. Because the camaraderie in the hallway of people intersecting with each other, with their ideas and their just love of what they're doing. I mean, we had the prize. We had Al Schmidt for 30 years, you know, that he wanted to be there. And so I would get phone calls from people that wanted to do like a big band. And I'm like, you should use Al Schmidt. And they're like, oh, forget about it. I go, no, let me go talk to him. And just to keep Al around. Like, what are you doing next week? I don't know. I said, okay. Let's do this, you know, because he just had the kinetic electric energy that attracted so many people, and he treated everybody so nice. Yeah. And he shared, you know. So I think as long as we keep that, we can, because you're not going to stop technology. I already see that. You know, we don't want to leave 2-inch tape. Just machines, you know, recording everything, and people had to really find out what's better. We did so many tests. Even with Al, it's like, okay, we'll record on 2-inch and we record on Pro Tools, and you tell us which one sounds better or which one sounds different. And they sounded both good. So that's easier. It's a tool, so I think the only way we're going to keep the businesses alive is to do it together.
Agreed. I love that perspective. And there's so much history. And I say the same thing. I'm of an age now where I've seen lots of different iterations, lots of changes, emerging technology.
Yeah.
And I will say this about streaming. And I know a lot of people have different perspectives on streaming, and I think quite a few of the criticisms are valid. But I will say this. I was in college, and it was the dark ages of the black hole that became the piracy issue that pretty much tanked two major music companies.
Yeah.
And I just remember it's the dark ages because I'm a broke college student, and I was pirating just like everybody else because we were too poor.
Your music. Yeah,
we were too poor for CDs. Like CDs were $20, so I was too poor. And if you didn't want to pirate, then you just had to not have music. It was really kind of like that because I didn't have a car. I was living in New York, so I didn't have like the radio, which is free. So I just wasn't listening to music. And I had this large CD collection that
I still do.
That, was back home, and I'm in New York. And I just remember when streaming came along, it was like the saving grace for me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I could listen to music, all those songs that I grew up listening to.
Right.
I could find them. And it didn't take all of this stress and inconvenience of identifying or going onto some piracy site to download this really low grade, poor resolution version of a classic song.
Yeah, yeah.
So all of a sudden you had decent fidelity on streaming services. Obviously nothing is like full resolution, but the streaming services provided decent fidelity, and I could actually with ease identify those songs that were the source of my upbringing. Yeah. And a lot of those songs were Christian music, things I grew up listening to in church. And that kind of thing kept me going. And even though streaming really hasn't solved a lot of issues, I certainly think it solved that one issue, which was the inaccessibility of music for a time. It's
amazing, really. I used to have a whole CD 5 player and, little thing of CDs and have to, work it and put it. And then all of a sudden I'm like saying to my car, play me this.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Right.
And I don't even know sometimes what I'm doing. When I'm like, I think I like this record. Right. And then it's in a rotation. I'm like, okay, I'll take it, because it's some of my favorite albums. I just go in my thing. I'm like, I don't even remember I did that, but I did it maybe before a bike ride or something.
Right.
And I used to patch my cassette player on my arm and ride around with that. And now it's just on my phone. It's like unreal.
Right. I mean, I think there's a part of us that can be in awe at the technological development and the technological advancement while also wanting more from the business side of things.
Yeah.
Because, and I think we can hold space for those two things. Like we can say this technology is such a testament to human beings' ability to solve problems.
Well, that's it. We're doing it ourselves and we're progressing.
Right. And the business sometimes is slow to catch up in the wake of technological advance, but that doesn't mean we can't have great respect and appreciation for the technology itself.
Right. And that's why as these kids grow up, and they just so lucky they got it in grade 1, they're quick at it. And they got to help teach us guys stuff, Well, I depend on all of you, it's like.
I'm saying I'm watching the Roblox generation come up now, and it's going to be interesting to see how they hack into AI and how they hack into the pre-existing services like YouTube and, Spotify and Apple Music. So I guess my last question before we wrap this up is going to be, if I'm let's say 19, 20, 21 years old, and I want, to get into this business as a producer, engineer, and I want to make big records. What would you say to that young person?
Well, when you say you want to be a producer, engineer, I guess if you produce stuff and you engineer it, you can stop playing it for people, but there's not really that category to be a producer. I mean, you can learn how to do things, but I just think it's music making. And I think when you're in a studio business, someone comes and says, I want to be a producer. It's like, okay, like, I know, like the late Phil Ramone, he was a producer, and Dave Foster and Quincy Jones. It's like, so I think that's great. You want to be that, but what's your path to get there? Okay, you want to be an engineer. The engineers usually get in a starting place as a setup or a runner. They have to work their way up. There's no working your way up as a producer. You could do an engineer and be part of the production of what's going on. And I think that's where a lot of kids go. Like, because if I'm the one in the control room recording, and you might be asking me, how does that sound? What do you think? Those are those qualities that eventually make you a producer. But there's just no, unless you're lucky and you just found a group that made a hit song, and then you're a producer all the way. But it's hard to just, I say to these kids, if you're in engineering school, you want to be an engineer, and you're going to have to go the path, but there's no path. Even a producer wouldn't say, okay, you be my co-producer. That's not going to happen right away too. So I always go, okay, be a producer, or just do what you're doing. But no, it's going to be hard to get a job as a staff producer. I don't know. You did it.
I did do it.
Yeah. How did you do it? So
I think it's a lot of what you said. Started off, came in as an engineer doing editing.
Yeah. And you're around.
Audio editing, and I became the best and the fastest audio editor I could possibly be. And
it's kind of like you just merge into it.
You kind of, but also I think it's about having good ideas.
Yeah.
Right? And you said it, I've had to initiate quite a few of the production ideas.
Right.
I'm like,
well, you have a bunch of musicians standing out there, and you're the engineer, and you're the one that looks like you're in charge. You're in the big glass.
Right.
So you can stop, and then you stop getting faith in yourself that I think I know this.
Faith in your own abilities, because it's really, in my opinion, the producer is the person that's brave enough to throw the ideas out and stick by them.
I've watched the best. Like Phil Ramone was amazing. He just flowed with it and guided it here and there, stuff like that. You just see different qualities in people, like Rick Rubin producing, and it's been just, I wish I could just squeeze everything out of me and put those experiences
You're supposed to be writing a book.
I should. I need to.
I've said this
I need to slow down.
Writing a book, doing a documentary, the Sound City documentary. For all the y'all who are out there who are curious about rock docs, there's a Dave Grohl produced Sound City documentary that Paula Salvatore is prominently featured in.
That
speaking
was a real
about
gift. Yeah, that was
that era.
That was shocking to me. When I was at Sound City, I always thought it was a sitcom anyway. But to be at Capitol and then for Sound City to have a movie, it's I didn't know that Sound City would make me famous, So, but I had the best years. It was a godsend for me too to get that job, and be around that, because it was like a tough decade, but it was the 80s and it was wonderful, But then for Dave to do that movie and just give me that opportunity, it was so wonderful.
Amazing. Well, I got to wrap this thing by telling you how I met you. So,
thank you.
I was at Atlantic in New York, Atlantic Records, and you came walking in the studio with Craig Rosen.
With Craig, you were that person.
I was their person. So, and I just remember thinking, she said NS10s. She knows what she's talking about. I was like, because you just came in and just clocked all of our gear. You were just like, oh, y'all using the Genelex. Oh, okay, y'all got the
Yeah, and I'm asking about the space. And
the NS10s, these are your mains. And it's like, how do you like these speakers? And, you clocked our board. We had a small format API 1608 in there, 32 channel. And you just kind of clocking our gear. And I was like, I don't know who this is, but she knows. I thought you were an engineer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't until I watched the Sound City documentary during COVID that I put two and two together.
Oh, wow.
So that was during COVID. I gave myself a syllabus.
So what am I? No kidding.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, so it's a full circle thing, and I think that's another thing about this industry. It's just so small.
That's
like you're going to run into the same people.
Totally.
Over and over again.
Totally.
So, and now,
I started an autograph book, but I didn't always like to get people on the first run. I didn't want to come out there. So I'd wait, and then they'd come in again. I'm like, okay. Cause I had faith they come in again.
Yeah.
And so I got them, to do this. So take a picture or do this. So, that's funny, but it's very cyclical too.
Yeah.
But I remember that cause you were quiet, Craig was doing all the talking, and I love Craig, and it was kind of right on the second floor or something. Mm-hmm. This is our room. We're going to have bands here. Did they do that?
Yeah.
Oh, they did that. Yeah. So, but I always used to, because I was the person on the phone talking to engineers, and I'm like, what do you want? I'll get 24 track. Okay. 30. Yes. Plus 6. Yes. Non-Dolby. Because, so I'd have to pull it out of them. They just, they're like thinking and talking. But then I would have to rent stuff. I would have to listen so I could describe what I'm selling. Mm-hmm. But I don't know the intricacies. Like I can't run it, But I just always say I know enough to be dangerous,
Right.
And when Phil Ramone brought in the fiber optic network so we could do the Frank Sinatra recordings, I would always be around watching the guys. And they're like, well, we're going to send it to New York with milliseconds ahead, and by the time they record and come back, it'll be on time. And I always said that I figured that formula out. Okay.
And you're talking once again about the Natalie Cole.
Well, it was the Frank Sinatra record.
Frank Sinatra
that they started
produced by
fiber optic thing.
Amazing. So I mean, light years ahead.
And like I said, we did that. Godzilla with P. Diddy, and he wanted to record Jimmy Page in London live, while he was there. And I said, yeah, we could do it. You could talk to him, it's fine. It's longer seconds, or whoever knows what that is. And then he said, they called me back and they said, well, he wants to see him. And this is the 90s, and I said, well, there's no link up with fiber optic. They don't have it for video yet. So I don't think that invented yet, but let me ask Jeff, he's a genius. We'll figure it out. And he's like, they got to get satellite dishes on both sides. I'm like, how much is that? He's like, it's probably 10 grand an hour, And I called them back, and I said, it's going to be so ridiculous. And we're going to have satellite here, satellite in London at Air Studios. And they're like, do it. Then we had to figure it out. I'm like, okay, Jeff, I got it. The good news. Yeah. But that was pretty much a feat, so it's nice. It's just nice being around technology. I'm very curious about it,
Yeah. Well, that's what Gender Amplified is all about. And I want to thank Paula Salvatore. Your credibility is unmatched.
Thank you.
But in addition to that, you have the biggest heart of anybody perhaps that I've met in the business. And just your will to give, your will to steward resources, your will to open doors, your will to mentor, and your will to really ensure that people feel seen, heard, understood, and cared for supersedes all of the accomplishments and the professional accolades, really pale in comparison to who you are as a human being. And so much of that, I think, has to do with your faith. Yeah. And, you and I are like friends now. And
we have so much to talk about. It's always a pleasure. And I'm honored to be on your podcast.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much.
Especially in the launching.
Oh, my goodness. It's going to be incredible. Thank you so much. Please check out Gender Amplified. at genderamplified.org. We are once again a nonprofit organization, 501c3, that supports the advancement of women and gender expansive music producers in the music and audio fields. Thank you so much. Until next time.